Hi Rob, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you. So last week when you were in here, we talked about you having some difficulty deciding what to do as you are quickly approaching graduation, right?
hmm
Do you still feel that way?
Yeah, I'm really stressed about it. I don't know what direction to go in. Like we were talking about last week, I'm thinking about graduate school, but I just don't even know where to start, what direction to go in terms of what graduate schools I would go into and what I where I really want to end up in terms of a career. So, I'm like really confused.
Okay, so some confusion around career and grad schools as well, right?
hmm
So last week I had also asked you to complete the SDS. Did you do that?
Yeah, I brought the results with me.
Oh, good. Okay, we could take a look at this.
I was a little bit confused about some things, so I just wanted to go over it, like you guys said.
Okay, and what were you confused about?
Um, I wasn't exactly sure. I know that it gave me these three things, but I wasn't 100% sure what they really mean.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like, there were a lot of different codes here, but some of them weren't in the same order as mine, so I didn't know how exactly I matched up, or if I only matched up with the ones that were exactly like mine.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay,
that was
so
really it.
we can go over that. I do have a packet here that we could both look at. It basically describes each type. Let's see. So you got SEI. So S is social. So if we look at that, it says train, inform, educate, help, supportive, avoid technical skills, empathy, and it also has high traits and low traits and occupations that fit under the social type.
Hmm.
So looking at that one, do you feel like you fit in with that or do you not fit in with that?
So these things are kind of like what I would gravitate towards, or what would be things that I would do, or things that
Mm-hmm.
I would focus on in this type.
Yes.
Well, this definitely sounds like me. Supportive,
Mm-hmm.
avoidance of technical skills,
Mm-hmm.
empathy,
Mm-hmm.
focus on relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Those are definitely things that I could see being a big factor in who I am,
Mm-hmm.
in my personality for sure.
Okay. And you see it says high traits, which are cooperative, friendly, humanistic, and low traits are ambitious, creative, and strong. Not saying that you don't have the low traits, they're just not as prominent as the high traits.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I could see that actually. Yeah,
And
I think that I'm very cooperative and friendly,
mm-hmm.
um, but I don't see myself as creative or ambitious. I mean, I would say that I am ambitious.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see myself as creative, so I could definitely see that as like a lower trait.
Mm-hmm.
But these would be like more prominent, so I guess I connect with that.
Right. So not saying that you're not creative, but it's not one of your strong suits per se.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
And if you look at the occupations for social, it says social work, counseling, police officer, and a licensed nurse.
Okay, okay.
What do you think about those occupations there?
Well, every one of those, except the police officer, have been jobs and areas of study which I have considered. So
Mm-hmm.
that's interesting.
Mm-hmm. So you've considered social work, counseling, and a nurse?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Would you say that you're still interested in those jobs?
I would say social work and counseling I'm still considering.
Mm-hmm.
The nursing I decided against because of kind of the physical part of nursing. I don't really like the idea of sticking people with needles
Mm-hmm.
or dealing with like blood loss or big
Mm-hmm.
like physical traumas. It doesn't really appeal to me in that sense. I don't think I'd be able to handle it so well.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of decided against that
Mm-hmm.
path. But social work and counseling have been a part of my consideration at least.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think that in the social category, which is your first combination code item, social, what do you think that social work and counseling, being that you have frequently pondered about those occupations, what do you think that they're under the list of your first letter there?
I definitely think that maybe this test is onto something, that it kind of matched me to things that I was considering already.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting to me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So moving on to your next letter, which is E, that stands for enterprising. That's verbally skilled, persuasive, direct, leader, dominant. The high traits are ambitious, adventurous, energetic, and the low traits are intellectual, creative, and feminine.
Makes sense.
What makes sense?
Verbally skilled is something that I feel like is one of my my skill sets. I think that I'm more a verbal person.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say persuasive, also adventurous and intellectual are ones that I could connect with.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't really been in many leader positions or like dominant, like played any dominant roles, so I don't know about those. Or creative again is in there, not really so much, but definitely verbally skilled and persuasive, ambitious, adventurous, and intellectual.
Okay, so you have some of those adjectives, you believe, but not all.
Yes.
Okay. And if we take a look at the occupations for enterprising, they are lawyer, business executive, politician, and TV producer. What do you think about those?
Lawyer and business executive have also been potential options for me. So, in my undergraduate study, I was a political science major, so I definitely connect with that to some degree.
Okay, so far it sounds like you are connecting pretty well in terms of the adjectives that are listed and also the jobs as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the last letter is I, which is investigative. That is thought, analytical approaches, explore, knowledge, ideas, not social. High traits are scholarly, intellectual, critical, and low traits are powerful, ambitious, and adventurous. What do you think about that?
I definitely connect with intellectual as a trait. Scholarly, critical. Yeah, I would say that, school has always been a strong point of mine. I've always liked to read, always liked to gain knowledge, to learn things. So I could definitely, to some extent, connect with that.
Okay. Okay, so do you have a little bit of a better understanding about the code that you were given?
Oh yeah, definitely. Now that I know what these things encompass, like the traits that go along with them, I could definitely understand better what this means about me. And I could see how those 3 letters came out over the other ones.
And just to make you aware, the other ones are realistic, artistic, and conventional. Just in case they pop up, because you did say that some did have various letters that you necessarily didn't come out with, right? Okay, so let's take a look. So I do see what you mean. So the first one is ISE, right? So that's an actuary. So just even though it's not your exact combination, it does have your same letters in there, just in a different order. So let's take a look. When you, if you had flipped through this before we met, did you find any jobs on the list that stood out to you?
There were a couple of them. Where are they? There was the psychologist ones.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much all of those, because I've explored psychology as a whole, as a field, rather,
Mhm.
like different programs, different subsets of psychology. Then there was lawyer, which is over here.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know where it is, but there was a therapist, just a regular therapist or counselor on here too, which was also something that I've been interested in. I'm sorry, I'm not sure where it is exactly. It's on
Okay.
there.
All right, so we can go back to the first one that you mentioned, which was down here, right? Psychologist.
Yeah, there were a bunch of them.
Yeah, there are a lot of psychologists. And if you notice the code that's given for the psychologist, it does have all of your letters just in different combinations.
Mm-hmm.
So it has social, investigative, enterprising, and all these different combinations. So they accompany all the traits that we talked about, which is what you got on this test, in all different ways. And you said that you had thought about counseling and psychology, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you take courses in college or high school?
So what I did was I took, even though I was a political science major, I took psychology classes and wound up, I almost had a second major in psychology, but I just wanted to be able to finish in time. So I wound up just taking it as a minor, like having it as a minor. So I technically have a minor in psychology at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. And you enjoyed those classes?
Oh yeah, I loved them.
Yeah?
Yeah, they were really good. They're really interesting.
Mm-hmm. Would psychology be something that you would like to continue after graduation?
I think I would. Yeah, it was just the issue is that there's so many different subsets, and also I was torn between kind of that educational process and that of like law school, which is 3 years, and it seems like a little bit shorter to be at a more advanced level, but I don't know if I'd be fully satisfied with the law degree. And I think it's because like those social qualities that I have, those humanistic qualities that it talked about in there, I think that those would be present and kind of not be satisfied, I guess, in the law profession. Or it could be. I mean, it could be. I'm not sure. I'm not 100% that that's the route I want to take. So I think that this helps me a little bit with that. So maybe it is something that that psychology or counseling is where I want to go.
I mean, it sounds like you're leaning more towards that, especially when comparing it with being a lawyer.
Yeah. After hearing those traits, I realized that that's probably what's holding me back from doing something else, even though I'm kind of torn between the two professions, or I have been.
Okay. Let's take another look at this. So I also see that there's psychologists in a school. There's also family counseling, family and marriage. How do you feel about those? Would that be something that you're interested in? Working at a school or working with
I don't think so. I think I more so would like to work with an adult population, not necessarily children.
Mm-hmm.
So I would probably lean more towards something outside of a school setting.
Mm-hmm.
But, I'm not sure. I would need to do a little bit more research on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are tons of possibilities and opportunities in that field.
Yeah, that's part of what's scary also is that there's so many different, not only so many different fields, but within one field there's so many different options that it's a little bit scary, overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. What overwhelms you about that? Is it just that there's so many options that you don't know where to go?
Yeah, like I want to make sure I'm choosing what's right for me. I've always wanted to end up in a place where I was doing work that I really liked to do,
Mm-hmm.
and that it didn't feel so much like work, that it felt more like I'm following a passion of mine. So it's important for me to end up in the right place. And I second guess, with all these options or all these different fields, look at the list of jobs that came up. I couldn't even find some of the ones that stuck out to me because of how many choices there were.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little bit, and this is after a breakdown of my traits. And
Right.
so, there's just so many different things out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So going back to what you said a few minutes ago, it sounds like job satisfaction is important to you.
Mm-hmm.
So
For sure.
So you like to enjoy your job, enjoy what you're doing, so it doesn't feel like a job.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. And let's see. How did you feel about this test overall? I know that it came out with, multiple pages of jobs, so it must have been a bit overwhelming to look at because it's hard to probably choose a few jobs because it is a lot. But how did you feel about taking the exam? How do you feel about the results?
It was fairly simple to take the exam. I didn't have any problems with it. It wasn't too complicated or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And even though on the occupation list there was a lot to look through, the summary code and the traits breakdown, the types, that part was really helpful to me, and I really enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing that on paper and getting the summary code,
Mm-hmm.
And especially once we went over the different categories and I could get a better understanding of what those actually meant.
Mm-hmm.
That was really helpful. So that part wasn't overwhelming at all. The occupation list, was a little stressful, but I definitely feel like this part in particular helped me in the process of going forward. I feel like it gave me some insights as to what I might want to do.
Mm-hmm. So it helped you maybe figure out your next step,
Mm-hmm.
career-wise and maybe grad school-wise as well.
Yeah, I think it helped me point out some prominent things about myself
Mm-hmm.
that are going to come into play when choosing a next step. So I think it's important to look at that.
Mm-hmm. So you feel that this helped you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. I just wanted to point something out. Let's see. So on this page was the daydream occupations. I believe you had to fill this out in the beginning, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you had to type in jobs that you had wanted to be when you were little, or jobs that you have dreamed about doing.
Right.
Right. So the first one you had put psychologist, a clinical psychologist. You put a lawyer, which were the two top choices that you have been speaking about this whole time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Psychiatrist, human resources, neuropsychologist.
Psychologist.
Oh my god, I'm sorry.
Okay.
And mental health counselor. So, I see it now. Okay. So, Okay. Sorry, I misread it. Thank you for helping me, though. Okay, so out of the jobs that you have entered here, you have 3 that are therapy based. You have the psychologist, the psychiatrist, and mental health counselor.
Yeah.
And although it doesn't have the exact combination you got, which is SEI, they do have some similar letters. Like the psychologist has the social piece and the investigative piece. Psychiatrist has investigative and social as well. And mental health counselor has social and enterprising. So although they're not in the exact order, they're still very prominent in those jobs.
Yeah.
Right? And all of them, you're just missing one letter.
Yeah. It was definitely interesting to see because the the psychologist, lawyer, even human resources specialist, psychiatrist, they were all to some capacity when you were reading me the traits and the possible occupations where these occupation lists are shorter than the ones that they provided, and they're just kind of a few examples. But in every one that I had, there was something in there. There was social work and counseling in the social, which have to do with those, with clinical psychologist and mental health counselor. And then there was lawyer and business executive in the enterprising, which I picked here, lawyer and human resources specialist as a business executive to some degree. And also it kind of includes working with people, so it's kind of a combination of social too. So that I really found interesting, especially when you were reading these to me earlier, how well those connected with my initial choices before knowing any of that information. So that was really cool. I like that. So I guess I'm on the right track to some extent, according to this test.
Yeah. That's really great that you were able to pick out pieces that helped you and to help you feel like you're on the right path.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely cool. I really liked to be able to see that on paper, you know?
Yeah, definitely. So you found this helpful overall, right?
Yeah, really helpful.
What do you believe will be the next step for you in figuring out career paths and where to go next?
I think the important thing after getting the information from this test for me is to do a little bit of research on the actual programs instead of kind of looking at where to go in general, like whether I should go to psychology, whether I should go to counseling, whether I should go to law school. Like actually looking at the programs, looking at what they have to offer and kind of picking one within one of those fields instead of focusing kind of like outside that. Because now I know that those things do fit me. And either of those directions maybe that I went in would be good. I just need to actually see which of the programs I connect with. So doing some more research, I think, is the next step.
And narrowing it down, it sounds like, too, right?
Yeah, exactly. Narrowing it down.
I think that researching the programs and the degrees is a very good idea. It's a very good first step because you have to know what you're going into. You have to know if you're going to like it, satisfaction, job-wise, career-wise. If you would like, I could help you with that. We can designate a session or 2 sessions where you and I look up programs together or job opportunities or availabilities out there for whichever job you would like to choose. So we could maybe make a pro and con list so we can narrow it down so it would be easier for you.
Yeah, definitely.
You'd like that?
Yeah, and I'd like to see like what the job outlook is and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what the potential salary is, because even though I want to love my work, I also want there to be certain things that make it a success for me.
Mm-hmm.
So that's important. So yeah, that would be great. If
Okay.
we could look into that.
Yeah, so we could definitely do that. So it sounds like psychology, counseling, mental health counseling, those are what you're leaning towards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So that's all for today. I just thought it would be important to go over your test results, go over the format of the test, and go over the types.
Yeah, definitely helpful. Thank you.
Welcome. And I'm glad that it was helpful for you, so now you have more of a handle on what to do.
For sure.
And as we move forward in therapy, I can help you feel as though you're on the right path. We could do some research together with some outlines. Right?
Yeah, that would be great.
Because you are approaching graduation soon, so we want you to be as ready as you can be. Right?
Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome. So since you had enjoyed this test, if you would like, there are some other tests available that I can give you the websites for if you want even more narrowing down.
Sure.
Yeah?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. So they're all computer-based as well. You will be printing out results just like this. They'll be different because it's a different type of test, but...
Yeah, any information would be helpful.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if you also want to do those in the next few weeks, you could also bring in your results for those tests and we can go over them as well.
Sure. Yeah, get like a second opinion type thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so here are your results. You can keep that.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing them. And we're all set. Do you have any questions or feedback?
Yeah, that's it. I really enjoyed it. It was very helpful. Thank you. And I look forward to continuing the process.
Okay. Thank you. I'll see you next week.
Okay, see you next week.
Bye.